I want to introduce myself. My name is Steve Brock. I'm the senior pastor of Tiltonville Missionary Baptist Church in Winter Garden, Florida. And my partner for today is Anthony Brenton. He'll tell you a little bit more about himself and he stands up to introduce our panelists for today. I want to welcome you to our community conversation on mental health. Continuing stigmas associated with mental health and counseling in minority communities. This is something that's been near and dear to the heart of many of the panelists as well as many of us. The stigmas that prevented us from seeking the proper help that we need to combat mental health issues in our community. And I want to introduce our panelists for today. We have four bright minds that will help guide us as we try to navigate through this day to see what it is we would need to better ourselves and how we can address mental health issues in our communities. The first one we have is Dr. Cornelius Jones. Dr. Cornelius Jones is a 17-year comeback veteran. He earned his bachelor's degree in sociology through the University of Hartford's Distant Learning Program in 2005. In 2007, while assigned to Yokosuka, Japan, he earned his master's degree in human relations through the University of Oklahoma. He also attended graduate school at Ashford University in San Diego, California, where he majored in psychology. In 2014, he changed his traditional education track when he enrolled into Trinity Bible College and Graduate School combined master and PhD program. He earned a master's in Christian counseling in 2017 and obtained his doctorate degree in counseling in 2019. He completed his clinical practicum through the Surface Warfare Medical Institute in San Diego, California in 2016. During his time there, he was trained on substance abuse disorders and dual diagnosis. After completing his practicum, he reassigned to Naval Branch Health Clinic, Kings Bay, Georgia, for his clinical internship at Substance Abuse Rehabilitation Program, where he treated Department of Defense service members and families that clinically diagnosed as alcohol and substance abuse dependent. Dr. Jones is the owner of Renew You Counseling Services, LLC, a private practice located in Jacksonville, Florida. He has over a decade of clinical counseling experience. He is a certified clinical trauma professional, certified anger management counselor, and a board-certified grief counselor. He works at the local and national level to advocate for change for those impacted by the lack of resources and services regarding mental health and general counseling. In addition to his work in the field of counseling, he is the author of Understanding Therapy, The Power of Marketing You, and Living Life After Death. He is also the founder of the 100 Strong Foundation Incorporated, which is a Florida nonprofit mentorship program designed to provide guidance to young men from low-income and single-parent homes in the city. Welcome, Dr. Jones. Thank you. Our next panelist is Dr. Lisa Bailey. Dr. Lisa Bailey grew up in a small town in New Jersey. She attended the University of Richmond in Virginia for college and earned her degree in psychology. Dr. Bailey always knew she wanted to make a difference in the lives of children. She decided to pursue a career in psychology and headed to South Florida to attend the University of Miami for graduate school. She earned her degree in clinical psychology and became a dedicated Miami Hurricanes fan. She made some counseling after this. Her graduate clinical training focused on children, adolescents, and their families. Much of her training was with youth and families in managing physical illness and with individuals living with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Her research focused on adolescent friendships and the effects of bullying. After completing her graduate school training, Dr. Bailey moved to Boston, Massachusetts to complete her clinical internship at Children's Hospital of Boston, part of Harvard University Medical School. While on internship, she continued to receive training in treating youth and families coping with acute and chronic medical and mental health problems. Looking for some warmer weather, and after one Boston winter, including a blizzard, Dr. Bailey happily accepted a postdoctoral fellowship at Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C. After earning her psychology license, Dr. Bailey remained on staff at CNMC for 4.5 years. Dr. Bailey spent 1 year serving our military families at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. After living in Washington, D.C. for 7 years, Dr. Bailey was ready to move back to Florida. She accepted a position at the University of Florida Health, Jacksonville, where she worked until June of 2018. In 2016, while at UF Health, she and her best friend founded Nautilus Behavioral Health, a private practice serving children, adolescents, and young adults and their families. Dr. Bailey provides assessments for individuals with concerns about ADHD, learning disabilities, and other symptoms that interfere with learning and daily functioning. She also provides therapy for youth coping with depression, anxiety, daily functioning, behavior issues, or who are just having difficulty adjusting to changes in their lives. Dr. Bailey is committed to helping youth and their families live healthy and fulfilled lives. Welcome, Dr. Bailey.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm Anthony Britton, and I'm glad to be here, and look forward to what's going to take place this morning. A little bit about me. I'm a certified addiction professional, been so for 37 years, served in the Air Force doing that type of work. And while I did go to school and Google some stuff and got a degree, life has been my classroom. Born to an alcoholic mom, I've been clean now for 29 years myself. And having worked in the field with primary focus on substance abuse, learned a lot about the mental health field when they combine the two together. And so all my life, y'all, this thing has been a hindrance to me and my family, so we're dedicated to taking it back to. And Pastor Serenity Christian Fellowship, and look forward to what's going to take place this morning. One of my jobs is to introduce our other two panelists. First, I want to introduce Dr. Gail James, who is currently a licensed clinical Christian therapist, motivational speaker, pastor, and a certified emotional focused life coach at Dr. James Counseling and Consulting Services, where she is the CEO and primary therapist for needs such as trauma counseling, mental health counseling, substance abuse counseling, and family therapy. Her personal interests focus on encouraging, empowering, uplifting, and mentoring individuals that have experienced trauma and pain to assist them in reaching their maximum potential. Dr. James serves as a pastor, prayer intercessor, and pastoral counseling at Everyday People Ministries, Orange Park, Florida. Dr. James gained her clinical experience through her education at Palm Coast State College and at St. Thomas University, along with previous employment at Bridges of America, Gateway Community Service. I worked at Gateway too for a while. That ain't on the paper like that. Gateway Community Services and South Rehabilitation Center, where she worked as a clinical therapist. Dr. James became a licensed professional therapist at the state of Florida, in the state of Florida, by the AACT and ACPE on the 23rd of May, 2017. Dr. James is currently a member of the American Counseling Association, the Association for Clinical Pastoral Education, and the American Association of Pastoral Therapists. Dr. James is the chairman, president of the nonprofit organization Sanctuary of Change, Inc., which provides support and services to survivors of childhood sexual abuse, sibling sexual abuse, molestation, incest, and domestic violence. Through Dr. James' private therapy practice, Dr. James Counseling and Consulting Services, her nonprofit organization, Sanctuary of Change Incorporation, she fulfills her desire to equip every individual she serves with the skills and strategies necessary to overcome their current obstacles and become strong, independent, confident, and successful with the ability to function as a positive, productive individuals in the community. Dr. James prides herself in her ability to teach others that they can achieve their destiny by going to bed every night with satisfaction and waking up every day with determination. Welcome, Dr. Gail James. Our next panelist is Dr. Tiffany L. Williams, a native of Jacksonville, Florida. She received her bachelor's degree from Florida State University in Family, Child, and Consumer Sciences in 2004. She later received her master's in social work from Florida State University in 2008, and then attended Nova Southeastern University, where she obtained her doctorate degree in health science in 2016. She is a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Florida, a certified family trauma professional, and a certified trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapist. She has provided mental health services for 10 years. She continues to provide mental health services through her private practice, Masterpiece Counseling Services. As a result of her exemplary professional achievements and community contributions, both locally and abroad, Dr. Williams has received recognition at the 2011 Child Guidance Center, Arlington Outpatient Team Member of the Year Award, a 2014 Florida Black Pages Top 20 Under 40 honoree, a 2017 and 2019 Powerful in Paint honoree. Oh, that sounds good. Powerful in Paint honoree. The 2017 Jacksonville JC's Community Humanitarian Awards honoree. The Women's Center of Jacksonville 2018 Unsung Shero Award. A Florida State University 2008 Notable No honoree. So we got a Miami, Florida State thing going. Dr. Williams enjoyed traveling and working out. She is defined by her strength and resilience. You see what I'm saying? Quick wit, ability to make others laugh, and loyalty to family and close friends. Welcome, Dr. Tiffany.
I want to share with you just 3 little things that we hope to accomplish while we're here today. One, we want to address the facts surrounding the problem with struggling in silence. 2, we want to address the normalization of trauma within the Black community. And 3, we want to build a bridge between local agencies and residents so that we'll have resources and know the resources that are available to help address these issues. And to begin, we're going to have introductions from the speakers, starting with Dr. Jones, who's going to share with us his passion for bringing this about. After the panelists have given us a brief discussion about their professional perspectives, we'll ask them a few questions, and then we'll open up for the audience to ask some questions that they may have. Amen? I mean, all right? All right, Dr. Jones, what's going on?
All right, good morning, and thank each of you for making it a priority to be here. I'm absolutely elated to have this distinguished panel of providers up here with me. I recognize the need for something like this to take place. Oftentimes in the minority community, we recognize that there's problems that's taking place, but yet there's anything to be done. And I saw fit for us to move past the topic and create a conversation, and that's what today is about. So here today, you all will have opportunity to pose questions to us directly, find out facts from myths in the community. We all bring something different to the table. And I reached out to, well, first, just being honest with you guys, this is rare, right? Because there's not a lot of us in this field, for one, and then also for them to take time out of their day to be a part of this means a lot to me. So with that being said, I'm somewhat of a unicorn in this industry, and what I mean by that, there's not a lot of black male providers, period, right? Something I would love to see happen. I don't know where we're missing the mark on that, because a lot of our men of color are struggling in silence simply because they don't have anyone to relate to. And I have a privilege on a weekly basis to sit down with different individuals who, you know, I have an opportunity to just have genuine conversations with. It's not the stuff that you see on TV with someone sitting with a pad, you laying on the couch. It's just coming in, having a conversation about what you're dealing with, and prayerfully giving some coping skills to move forward to make improvements in your life. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Bailey, but again, thank you guys.
So I was very excited to hear about this event when Dr. Jones called and asked me to be a part of it, because I think from the perspective that I have, I see people in my office after they have made the decision and had the realization that they needed help and have been able to figure out what to do to start getting help. I don't get to talk to people very often before they've gotten to making that decision. And so I was very interested to take part in this so that I'd be able to kind of share, one, that there is help for whatever the issue or the problem. And this can be big issues, it can be small issues. But also kind of dispel some of the myths that I think keep people from reaching out even when they recognize, oh, I do need help, oh, things are not going so well. And then the other part of it is I work with children and their families. And so most of the time, it's not the children who are the ones reaching out, it's their parents. And that takes a great deal of courage for a parent to say, my child is struggling and I don't have the answer. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to help. And so anything that I can do to kind of let parents know there is help. There are things, and even if you don't even know the question, even if you kind of say, my child is struggling and I need help, you don't have to know what you need. There are ways to reach out and somebody can help you figure out what is it that's going on with your child and what is it that your child needs. So that's why I'm here.
Good morning. So I'm going to try to keep this very short. So again, like everyone else, I was very excited to be on this panel and have this open discussion. I am here because the clientele that I see in my private practice is what I call the superwoman syndrome individuals. So these women that come into my office have no clue who they are because all of their lives they have been trying to do everything for everybody else. They don't know what it is that they like, what it is, what their goals are, what their purpose is, and everything is tied to who they are to someone else or what they provide for somebody else. And 9 times out of 10, the woman in the household, whether it's a single household or a couple household, they are the ones to do everything, provide, rearing the children, doing everything for the home, all of that kind of stuff, right? On top of either keeping up with a business or keeping up with work. These women that come into my office are burnt out. They are completely burnt out, and here's the troublesome thing, is that they wear a mask of, I'm okay. And they feel like wearing that mask is a badge of honor. And at the end of the day, what it's doing it is perpetuating a very toxic mantra that being burnt out, doing everything for everybody else, not taking care of self is a good thing, when it's really not. And so I would hope to bring forth the conversation about it's okay to not be okay. Let's go ahead and reach out for help, not when I'm like broken down and like crawling into your office at the end of my rope. But you know what, when I start feeling a little different, or when it's kind of on the edge and I'm just kind of tilting a little bit, not reaching out for help when it's just the absolute worst in my life. So encouraging people to reach out when nothing's wrong. Okay, reach out just to check in. So I hope to generate some conversation around that and encourage people to reach out for help and not just drain themselves completely, and see that as a way of yeah, y'all get the point.
In my private practice, I see mostly individuals that have dealt with some kind of trauma. And usually when you say trauma, people think of veterans, but it's not just veterans. You have people that have been in car accidents that are anxious and scared to drive anymore. You have people that have been sexually abused. You have people that have been through domestic violence. And the conversation I would like to have is, don't, get rid of this, find a way to get over the shame and the guilt and the disgrace and say what you're going through so you can get help, but not only help, but healing. Because if you don't get healing, then you don't get to the point you need to get so that you could continue to function. So that is I was happy when Dr. Jones contacted me, because I think a lot of us take care of our physical health so easy. We're quick to run to the hospital if Oh, my blood pressure is a little high, but your mental health is so much more important because that starts the thinking process and your thoughts become actions. So that's where behaviors come from. So if you don't maintain this, then everything else is off kilter. So that's why I'm here.
Let's just jump right into it. I want to just rip the Band-Aid off from the beginning. And there's been a misconception in the African American community that we don't have mental health illness. We all had that uncle that's in the back room at Big Mama's house that we just said he touched a little bit. And so the normal people, as long as you can put your pants on right, you can go get a job, you can go to work, everything is fine, or so we thought. And there's a lot of reasons why mental health is so rampant in the African American community, from just bad information, trauma, substance abuse, a number of reasons. What are some of the misconceptions that people have, and how can we combat these misconceptions and communicate more effectively? Dr. Bailey?
Okay. I think a big one that I see when people come to my office, especially because usually it's parents bringing their child to the office. One of the questions I get a lot from the kids is, there's something wrong with me. And my answer is no, there's never anything wrong with you. There's something that your parents saw that they thought you were struggling with or that was getting in your way. There's nothing wrong with you. So I think that's one issue, is that when people are either voluntarily coming into counseling or they're brought to counseling, that's the perception, that they're coming because there's something wrong with them. And I think when I have been able to talk with kids and help them understand there's nothing wrong, but right now life isn't going the way that you were hoping it would. Things that you're trying to do aren't working out. So coming in here, you can use this time to figure out how to make things go the way that you want them to go, how to figure out skills and techniques and strategies that help your life go in the direction that you want it to go. And we all need that. Everybody, every single person needs that at some point, where things aren't going as expected, and you got to figure out how to make that happen. For kids, they've only been on this earth a short time. They only have so many skills and so much knowledge. And if they don't have somebody who can help them figure that out, then they're just kind of bumbling along and trying to figure it out, and they might get it, but why not go somewhere where that person's trained to help them get it? And then they don't have to spend their lives trying to figure this out. They can spend a short amount of time figuring out how to make things work.
With that, so it's incumbent upon the parents to bring that child to someone like you. What about when you have the parent who say he's just bad, he needs a whooping? If he just, you just whoop him a little more, he'll be better. And then so you run into issues with the school and little Johnny's acting up at school and different places like that. How do you get hold to those children when the parents don't understand that there's a need for, or I can't say they don't understand it, they have bad information. They think that just, you whoop them some more, put them in timeout or take whatever toy they like, then they'll act better, when there's actually issues that need to be addressed. How can we circumvent getting a hold of those children that need that attention?
I think one of the places to do that is in school. I think educating teachers and school staff on, when you see little Johnny acting out in class, he's not bad. This is not a thing. Children are not bad. There's something going on. There's a reason that he's doing that. And so if the teachers and the school staff have the information, they don't need to diagnose anything, they don't even have to treat it, but they can have different conversations with parents. They can have a conversation with parents of, we've tried these things and they're not working. That often leads to a conversation with the parents about the things they've been trying. And so when everybody can come to an agreement on, we've tried this, we've put this out there, we've done more of this. So even if it's, well, you keep giving him a whooping, it's not working. He's still doing these things. When we can kind of just put that on the table, and even for parents who are very, very resistant with that, when we put it on the table, it's sort of like, okay, well, you've been doing this. So you tell me what you're getting out of that. You tell me what that is helping with. And when parents can realize, oh, I'm not getting anything, this is what we've got, then we can start having a conversation of, well, maybe we try some other things. I think we have to be careful about blaming parents or making them feel like they've been doing something wrong, because that just shuts them down and they don't want to. We've lost them.
Right.
We can't help them. But helping parents to figure out, well, what things am I actually willing and able to do differently? And we see, do those things work? We see what works and we see what doesn't work. Yeah, that's
And I like to piggyback off of that as well. Sometimes even just to help to circumvent that, just plain old resources are needed, because sometimes these parents, and not that they don't want to align with the provider to help, make little Johnny better, but it's like, I'm home, I'm by myself, I got 3 other kids that I need to feed, I work a job that don't pay me much, and I'm there 60 hours a week, and sometimes they just need those supports to help them to be present and open to the interventions that are being provided. So sometimes it's just as simple as, and I don't want to say simple as in it's simple, but yeah, sometimes it is as simple as just providing those families with resources. Before you can even get to the, okay, how are we going to treat Johnny? Let's see what is needed in the family to help the family sustain, to be self-sufficient. Then we can talk about the mental. Because if I'm hungry, I don't care.
Right.
So.
I think that there's some cultural conditioning that has been done within the Black community that sometimes we choose to overlook. And a part of that is the abuse aspect. I'm going to beat this out of you. You embarrassed me by the school having a call, and I will continue to beat you until you figure this out. Well, that does nothing for the behavior modification, but it also creates a history of trauma that's going to have to be addressed at some point as well. And in fairness to the parents, in today's technology era, to not be educated on the symptoms that your child is displaying, it's something that we got to begin to take ownership for, right? We have the means to know and find out some of the most unnecessary stuff that's out there, but when it comes to something that pertains to our legacy, our children, we won't do the work, right? So community resources are necessary, it's a must. People got to know where they can go to get those resources. So I definitely agree with that. But also know that so much more has to be done. There was a video that was published probably 3 weeks ago. A mother, she went to the school.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
That's what I was thinking about.
And social media, some people you don't understand what she was going through. I look at that different. You don't know what you just put that child through, right? I'm never going to be on the side of the abuser, but the abused, because it's easy to say, well, they're a single parent, all of those things. A lot of that, unfortunately, again, is part of cultural conditioning. But those children have no control of those things. So we got to put it into proper perspective and make sure that we are looking at different ways that we can aid the children in getting the help that they need, because, and Dr. Bailey spoke on it from the school aspect, most school psychologists, that's the gateway to the prison pipeline. If your child is misbehaving and they can't get it under control, and then they begin to give the diagnosis aspect of it, we've done everything that we can. Now we're gonna take the child out of regular class, we're gonna put them into alternative school, and if the behavior still doesn't change, that's where the Department of Juvenile Justice gets involved. That's where the Department of Correction comes into place. So again, we have to be informed of these things because the statistics are out there, right? 53 million people in this country right now suffer from some form of mental illness. In the black community, those numbers are, the percentage is ridiculous, but most of us, we haven't been diagnosed, and that varies because of a lack of quality insurance, and sometimes just because I'm good, I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing, the drinking, the smoking, reckless behavior. But we have to make sure that we do our part to ensure that these kids are afforded an opportunity and a chance to at least improve on where they're currently at. If not, they grow up and they become broken adults.
Quick question. We talked about there's resources available and there needs to be resources available, but how do we reduce the fears about the therapy and the stigmas? You know, no one wants to be labeled as quote unquote crazy, and we have a fear that if I go and see someone, then they're going to label me, and then everybody's going to know, or they're going to try to put me on some medicine or things. How do we overcome that fear that's prevalent in our community?
I think that again, it's twofold. Some people come to us for medication, looking for medication, right? Just because of the titles in front of our name. And I have no desire to ever get involved in those things. I try to work with people to get to the root cause of the problem. The diagnosis is important, but until you can begin to get to the root cause of what has led this person to feeling the way that they are, then we're missing the mark, right? And in terms of helping people to understand that I'm not crazy, I'm not broken, I would pose the question, who in the community is qualified to label them with it, to diagnose them with those things? Because as we know, there's not a lot of us who do this. So if you're listening to mama and your cousins and all those people who don't have any kind of clinical training or understanding because they took a few psych courses in undergrad, then shame on you, right? So we have to do a better job at making sure that when those conversations do come up, you need to go talk to somebody. Well, I'm not crazy. No one said you was crazy. I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but you're never going to be able to convince a crazy person that they're crazy.
Right.
Right? It's the people that sane that say, "Oh, I'm crazy. Don't mess with me."
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that as well. But so there's things that that we have to do, but we also got to be able to get people to understand that if you're having problems sleeping at night, if you find yourself with anxiety, panic attacks, symptoms of depression, that you have to speak up. But that person also needs people around them of goodwill who will speak up on their behalf. If they're in your home and you notice that they come home from school and run straight to the room, and they only come out when you call them, that's the indicator that something may be going on, right? That's the time to contact your insurance provider, EAP, and see what can be done. So.
Like Dr. Jones said, I think a lot of us, we self-medicate, and so we take something, we drink something, we smoke marijuana, whatever else they smoke out there. But what we do is we don't get to the root cause, and that is a problem, because when you don't get to the root cause, it's just a Band-Aid. And so you're going to continue to exhibit all these symptoms until we get to the root cause. I just sincerely believe that I'm not going to help you with your addiction or anything else unless I get to the root cause of, because addiction is a feelings disease. You're trying to numb something. So what is it that you're trying to numb? When we get to that, then we could move forward.
I think the other thing too is what we have to understand is what fear is. We are afraid of things when we don't understand. When we don't know, when we don't understand, we're afraid. And we stay afraid when we hide. And so if we just say, well, this thing is happening and I need help, but I don't want to go and ask anybody because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. I don't want people to know all my business. That keeps you afraid. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you where you are. And you're not going to be able to move forward because you're hiding. And so if you can take that step, even if your first step is not, I'm going to therapy. If your first step is, I'm going to look up depression. I'm going to look up abuse. I'm just going to look for information. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to tell anybody. Nobody has to know that you've looked it up. If you start there, what you'll find is you're not the only one. There's other people there. There's other people looking up this same information, which is why that information is out there, because people need it. And so I think a lot of times when people are thinking about getting help or services or anything like that, sometimes that's too big. Sometimes it's not the first thing that you're going to do. You kind of start with what you feel like you're able to do, and then you go from there. I don't usually see people as the first step. I don't usually have parents that say, my child came home from school and they screamed at me and they started calling me names and they've never done that, so here we are. That would be great if that was the first step. But that's not when I see people. I see people after they've been trying to figure it out, and what they're trying to figure out isn't working. And so if you just take some step that gets you information, that gets you closer to asking for help, that makes a difference. That hopefully you would even see for yourself, even if it takes a while before you actually come into the door to see anybody.
So I'm in the community and I'm trying to navigate these feelings that I have, and everybody's telling me, well, you just should go to church. You need to work on your relationship with God. And so I show up at the church and the pastor's telling me you just need faith. All you need is faith of a mustard seed, and you can move mountains. And I think I got faith. And so I show up at church, I give them my money, I do the things, I turn my flips, I foam at the mouth, I do all these things. I want, they place hands on me, they put oil on me, and I still feel the same way.
Right.
Come on.
And if the church can't help me, how do I then get a hold to somebody else? Because I've been taught that I can do all things through Christ, and I can get, if I just get to the church, if I can just, and we have unqualified pastors that are leading churches that are not in partnership with mental health providers because they don't have the training. It's an unfortunate thing, but probably about 8% of African American churches are pastored by uneducated leaders, meaning they don't have any social or clinical training when it comes to dealing with counseling. Not even getting as a licensed counselor, and something that they could get in a 12-month course. So how do I deal with it? The church is not helping me. I pray. I do this. What can I do? I still got these same issues that I've been dealing with because I didn't go see Dr. Bailey. My mama didn't take me to see Dr. Bailey. She woke me. And so now I made it through that, and I got into abusive relationships, and I've shown up at church. How can I get help?
You know, I don't want to turn this into church, but the Bible says that faith without work is dead.
Right.
Right? So faith alone is not enough to get you through the challenges that you're facing. And I totally agree with you that the church isn't qualified to provide counseling to the issues that people are struggling with. It's good to go in and talk to the pastor and different folks in leadership there from time to time about minor things. But when it comes to emotional and mental issues, the church ain't the place. Right? We have created an environment where keep it here. Let's just pray about it. Well, some things you just can't pray away. You have to be prepared to do the work for. And I think that that's where the church is failing. I would love to see training, and I know that I've talked to you about this before, Pastor Steve, about facilitating training to teach pastors how to operate in a clinical setting, right? Because if I'm dealing with grief, I've lost my job, find myself struggling and I don't know what's going on, that ain't the time to say, brother, let's pray, right? God will take that spirit off of you. I need for a different spirit to be present, one that can help me. And I think that pastors have to be honest, because each of us, we're held to a code of ethics that we are not allowed to operate outside of our level of competence. I can't do what Dr. Bailey does. That's not my lane, right? I can't do what Dr. Williams does. That's not my lane. We all have specialties. And there's this idea that the pastor can just do it all, right? And as you said, well, most of them have no formal education in this area. So what I would communicate to the black church, step outside of those walls when you're hurt, right? The church is good for a feel-good message on Sunday morning. It's good for some other areas, but when it comes to the mental and emotional struggles, the church just simply isn't the place to go. Okay? And if anybody is over-religious, I can't apologize for that. We just have to be real about what we're dealing with in our community.
But you don't know my pastor. You can lay hands, I tell you, he speak in tongues.
And he walk on water with Jesus.
Yeah.
I think the other thing with that is they're not mutually exclusive.
Thank you.
You can
That's-
still, nobody is
yes.
saying, don't pray, don't
That's
talk to
what
the
I'm
pastor,
saying.
don't go,
Yes.
keep doing that,
Yes.
go do
You
that.
can do both.
But you do church and.
Yes.
You can talk to your pastor and, because you can't get there's no place you can get absolutely everything you need. And so,
Except Walmart.
except Walmart and maybe Amazon. But besides those places, but you can't, you are asking too much from your church and from your pastor to solve all of your problems.
Exactly.
And to help you figure out every aspect of your life. So if you look at it that way, you are asking the wrong person to do all of these things for you. So you have to figure out, what is it that I get out of church? What is it that I get from conversations with people at church, with my pastor? What are the things that they are really good at providing in my life? And then the other stuff you have to find somewhere else. Because asking one person or one group of people to provide absolutely everything you need, it's not fair to you, it's not fair to them, and it's not possible.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that you have less faith. It doesn't mean that you don't believe. It doesn't mean that you are not worthy. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that you are using what God gave you to look for other things. And you can still use your discernment to see, well, does this person seem like they're actually being helpful to me? Is this person telling me to do things that fit with my beliefs in the way that I think that people should act in the world? And then you decide, is this the person that can actually help me with this, that I can receive help from? But that person doesn't have to be at your church.
That's where that free will that God gave us comes in. Right? And another thought, and then I will be quiet into the next question. But we can't be a people of faith and fear at the same time. The two can't coexist. And I think that in our community, we all have the faith of Job, but yet we are some of the most fearful people. That's where the fear, I call it FOBO. It's not in I wish the APA would consider putting it in, but it's fear of better options. Rather than sitting at home and struggling, why not step out and say, this is where my faith comes in, right? That fear of better options. What if I do go and sit down with somebody and it actually works? I'm actually able to move forward. But what I often tell people is that I don't send invitations to pity parties and I don't accept it. At some point, we have to be prepared to move past all of these bad things have happened to me. What are you doing now to move past that pain? Because it's sticking with that pain. It lacks or causes a lack of productivity in other areas of your life.
When it comes to the church thing, you know, there's another side to that too. Yes, the pastor gonna pray, but you still need to do what you need to do. And what I find is I have a lot of clients that come because now the pastor or his wife has betrayed them. Because now the whole church knows all their business. So it's like, do you really want to go there? So not only are they dealing with what they're dealing with, but now they're dealing with church hurt.
Right.
So there's another level of distrust. So something else is added on top of what they was already going through. My pastor betrayed me, my pastor's wife betrayed me, because now the whole church know my secret. I just, you know, I have a problem with churches saying, rebuke it, resist the devil, and he will flee, declare and decree a thing. Yeah, that's good. That's all good. That's all good. But you still have to move your feet. If you don't do something because you're the one dealing with those issues, you know that you're not sleeping at night. You know that you don't get up to take a bath for a whole week because you in depression mode. So you have to move your feet. The pastor can't move your feet for you.
That's right. Yeah, I think there needs to be a dual partnership between mental health providers as well as the clergy that are out there. Churches develop a lot of partnerships. If you come hungry, they get second harvest, they get food banks involved. They don't have one open. You need a job, they go to job banks. They'll provide you with a bus ticket to get to a job fair, things of that nature. But when it comes to mental health, the church says, well, just pray and go fast and do all these other things. And I think that there needs to be a closer partnership between the two because I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they're both included and they work together well. I found out, having pastored all the years that I've pastored, is that when I find that parishioner who has XYZ problem, that's beyond my pay grade, that's beyond my ability to assist them with, partnering with that mental health provider always gets them to the place that they need to be. And you see a quicker turnaround with dealing with it when you realize, one, you know, I'm not Superman, and God didn't call me to be Superman, but if you can facilitate getting them the help that they need, I think that parishioner would be 100% better and quicker than just telling them some superficial, let's just pray about it, mantra that the church has held up for so long. And I want to address this, and I'm going to be quiet because Dr. Britton here has a lot of questions that he need to ask. So I want to address this. We dealt with children, and we deal with adults. That child does not help grow up to be an adult that has the same issues that they haven't dealt with. And so when they show up at Dr. Williams' door, being a superwoman, how can you help them realize that that's not a role that they need to play? I want to admit publicly that there's only 2 men ever created that know anything about women, and that's going to be Jesus Christ and Tyler Perry. No other man knows anything about women. He knows how to make that money.
You know how to finesse.
Right. But so she shows up hurt because she's been dealing with this because mama didn't get her to Dr. Bailey, and she's been through all these abusive relationships that we get in because you got to admit society has created this dog-eat-dog world where they take advantage of people with mental illness or that have distress disorders and things of that nature, because when you have these issues, you look for comfort in the wrong faces most times. And so how can they recognize that I have an issue that I've been dealing with since a child, and I really need to see you, Dr. Tiffany, to help me assist with this issue?
So, and I see this quite often. Well, one, in any therapeutic relationship, you have to build that trust, you have to build a rapport. And so it starts with me basically building a relationship with that individual. And as time goes on, what we end up doing is identifying that child, identifying that traumatized child in that woman. And every client, of course, is different, but there seems to be a theme of we identify this broken, traumatized child, how this child is presenting as an adult, and how that contributes to, you know, getting into multiple abusive relationships or engaging in unseemly behaviors. And then what we end up doing is saying, okay, the things that I was brought up on is not what fits right now. Because what we end up doing is taking all of our values, our cultural norms, and everything that we have gone through from a child's place and trying to apply it in an adult place or in your current state. And so I have to work with those clients, mostly women, in dismantling the fact that you have to operate in this way. So just because your mom did it, just because your grandma did it, doesn't mean that you have to do it. And you're not dishonoring mom or grandma by doing something different, by having a different value system, adopting something different, living differently, because that's what suits you now. And also having to get clients to realize that you are, if you are human, if you are breathing and living purposefully, you're going to change. You're not going to be the same person you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So why would you expect that what worked when you were 10, that broken child, to work now when you're 25, 35, 45 years old? So we go through a very intensive process of breaking down what it is I believe and then building up, what do I believe? What sits right with me? What makes me feel good? How am I now able to operate my life and it brings me joy and peace? And doing away with the guilt and the shame that comes with, maybe my mama didn't do it right. Because we have a lot of that. Like, well, you know, my grandma, she really loved me, but she beat the hell out of you too.
Right.
And we're not going to dismiss grandma. We're not going to say that she didn't. But what she did do was, you know, abuse you to the point that now you're a broken individual. You know, and I say broken loosely because we do go through the whole process of you didn't come here to get fixed, okay? Nothing is wrong with you. But there are some things that are still within you that are being expressed at this age and at this stage of your life that is not in sync. It's not in sync, it doesn't work, and so that is the process that we go through when those individuals come into my office.
Important to remember that every vicious dog was once a cute little puppy, right? So, and that goes for both men and women. So a lot of the behavior that you all see that's being displayed through men is a result of the trauma that was never addressed that they experienced as kids, right? So, and that's not to sympathize, because I was telling the panel a few days ago that last week, 7 out of 10 women that I sat down with had all been sexually traumatized at some point. College, in the home by family members, boyfriends, you name it. And I couldn't help but to think, where are these 7 rapists? They're being protected. That's where they're at. They're not incarcerated, because a lot of this stuff isn't reported. A lot of it is just normalized. You know, that's where your grandmama and them told you to stay away from Junebug. Oh, don't leave him in there with them kids. You know he crazy. No, you know that he's a pedophile. But we don't call it what it is. And we tiptoe around this stuff. And that's why we have so much of it, and that's why I believe that a lot of women struggle and have to wear this extremely thick skin as a result of what you all have been through.
What you all talked about initially, I was wondering, will there ever actually be preventative measures put in place, like the parent or the single mom or the parents having children while they're carrying and expecting? Will there ever be preventative measures put in place where they're educated or provided resources or make it mandatory for them to be well abreast of things that could transpire in the future with their kids, as far as trauma and depression, anxiety, and other stuff. And then my other thing was, my grandmother passed in May. I love to sit down with her and ask her questions. And something that stood out, there's a lot of things that stood out, but something that stood out was, she told me that my grandmother, which we call Big Mom, always encouraged them to feel or speak highly of their grandpa, of their dad, never to, have an ill will or anything towards him. Mind you, at least 2 of his daughters, including my grandmother, was, I guess molested sexually by him. And she still had this, not gleam in her eyes, but that's how my grandma was 81, that's how she lived her life, and that was her mindset. And I've noticed that she's passed it down to all 7 of her kids, and some of her grandkids. I'm like that. I'm like the firefighter. I'm like the one that's like, no, we got to finish up because I can't continue. You can see it clearly, and you just can't continue on within that same pattern or that same cycle. But definitely the preventative piece. Because a lot of people don't know what you don't know. Like you just don't know what you don't know.
I think that's an area where there is a tremendous amount of work that still has to be done, because I think the information is there, but you're 100% correct. People don't know it's there. And so there are places where, there's sort of kind of singular programs where they are working with expecting mothers, and they do things, and hospitals will have some information available, but we don't yet have kind of a system-wide way where we're getting that information to people.
One last thing, I know there's therapy for Black girls, the website, you can download the zip code in it. I live in Georgia and I used it, and I told another friend about it, and she used it, found one that she absolutely loved and needed in that present. Like, she didn't waste no time, she literally. And I happened to see it via a Facebook Live video, and I went to the website, put in my zip code, and went there thinking. But what is therapy for Black girls? What is there for men? Because I imagine we women, like, we harbor a lot. But men, they definitely, I don't know, I wouldn't even try to attempt to address that. But I know they have a lot, as you mentioned.
So one of the things that
Therapy for Black boys, something.
one of the things,
There is actually.
Therapy for Black boys?
Yeah, there is.
Really?
Yes.
yeah, men typically don't show up, right? And women historically will go to retreats, seminars, workshops for self-empowerment and to better yourselves across the board. Unless it's something that's work-related for our jobs, men typically won't go. So one of the things that I'm trying to work with through a Facebook group, Black Fathers, we are organizing right now to begin to do male retreats to address a lot of the mental, emotional insecurities with manhood that a lot of men struggle with in private, right? And that's why they often act out the way that they do. And so much more has to be done. I wish I could answer your question sincerely about the preventive side of it, but honestly speaking, I just think that is so broad, because all the different organizations would have to be on board with something like that. Then there's a a legal side of it where the state, would have to obviously have some type of oversight. And they rather allocate funds for stuff outside of this arena.
And so far, some of the things that Pastor Brock brought up, we yet want to shift to where we're going to talk about a couple more questions, and then take your questions in for the panel and ideas that you have. Because I look around the room, I'm sure you're here because you have a vested interest in the pain that's happening in our communities and in our families and so forth. And remember, y'all, that this is a community discussion on mental health in minority communities, hopefully to bring out and discuss the stigma of mental health in our community, how to break down those barriers, and to encourage the community to make their mental health a priority. I've been in this business for 37 years, and I would get uptight when I'm at work and we dealing and we grinding, we get into the nitty gritty. And then I go to church and we talk about David and Daniel them and the lions then. And I'm watching that same spirit and how there was a great divide. And then going back into my hood where I live at and see the pain that you and I live with every day. You follow what I'm saying? But I've learned during my 37 years, they got the same pain in knocker teeth that they got on the north side.
Come on, somebody.
I've learned that economics can cover it up, we can shine it up, but shame is shame. Fear is fear and guilt is guilt. You know what I'm saying? I think that it takes all of it. It takes the medical model, it takes the treatment, the therapy, it takes the recovery community. I'm talking about AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, whatever. The mistake would be, I've learned, is when we divide ourselves, when we got hurting people sitting and we're bickering amongst ourselves, what's the appropriate level of care? I need to make it about that person.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's some of the things I think that, and then you go to therapy, y'all, are you black enough to counsel me? Brother. Can a brother get a hookup? You know what I'm saying? And so we have to wrestle all that kind of stuff to include the church thing. When the church, that church took our people through slavery, they took them through beatings, they did the best they could with what they had. And now though, as I read the panel here, we have several of our therapists and counselors and doctors who do have a belief. Here's my point, it take it all. Y'all buy what I'm saying? And so here's the question, y'all. And this is the question I'm asking. I'm going to boo myself when I ask it because the answer is obvious. Do you believe that there are racial bias in treatment settings that keep minorities away from therapy?
Yes.
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 You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And what we going to do with that?
Yes.
Who like to share?
Oh gosh. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, the angry black woman. And I say that because, I am a black woman. I know, right? Not understanding what our pain looks like is at our detriment because we're seen as aggressive, we're seen as, of course, angry, we're seen as non-compliant, we're seen as ungovernable. And the thing is that that's not what it is. What it is I am pained to the extreme. And how I'm acting out, although may not be, the best, is I am asking for help. I need your help. I need your assistance. And so when we get to those places of help, practitioners that do not necessarily look like us or even understand where we're coming from, the doors are slammed in our faces. And so that's just the first thing that pops up for me. It's like the angry, ungovernable black woman. She's non-compliant. When I used to work with kids, long time ago, I did used to do therapy for kids, and the process was we would come in, we would meet with both the parent and the child, and then we would meet with the child individually. So the child, because the child is a client, the child felt like, oh, okay, we can build a relationship with that child. And so as a new clinician, I would have a supervisor come in and we would discuss, okay, what were the behaviors that were presented, what is this family's history, X, Y, and Z. And I would share with them, okay, this is what I observed. Well, what I would find is with the black families, the Caucasian supervisor, if they heard like keywords like if the parent said, well, you know, I whooped him yesterday, they would be quick to think, oh, well, that's abuse, 1, 2, let's call the people.
Quick.
And it's like, whoa, hold on. And then we have to navigate how we speak, because we have 2 languages. We have our language, and then we have our language, right? Okay, so we have to dumb down our language and use words like, well, I gave him a spanking, so as to not trigger, you know, people being sent to our homes.
Right.
So I'm watching this happen. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let's not be so quick to think about calling, you know, the abuse hotline just because this lady said she was going to whoop her child, or she has every right to spank her child. She has every right to discipline her child. Are there any marks? Are there any bruises? You know, but here's the thing. To understand, for us, we know, oh, I whooped him last night. That don't mean that, you know, the mama hung him up by his toes upside down. It just meant that she got it never had, you know. But for them, they see it differently. And so again, that cultural divide, that need for competency, is to our detriment when they don't know, because again, small little things like that can turn into huge devastation to the family. But then also now they have in their heads, I can't trust them. I can't trust those providers. They're going to call the people on me. They're going to try to take my kids. And so again, that it totally obliterates trust. Totally.
Let me be a little bit transparent. My mom died of alcoholism. And when I first got into being a counselor therapist, I was either very hard on black female alcoholics, or I was very soft because I still had some mommy issues. And so even as an African American, I have to be careful about my stereotype of our people when they come to therapy, because I haven't dealt with my issues. Y'all got what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I have to learn that I'm still who I am. You know what I'm saying? I have to understand that person I'm sitting in front of, specifically African American, but it can be of any other race, right? But my issues need to be dealt with, or I misunderstand what that person is talking about.
Yes.
Anybody else about the racial bias? And I got another question, y'all, that's going to knock your socks off.
Yeah, I do. I think the racial bias is something that, you know, we know that it's real, because it prevents people from stepping forward and getting the help that they need. But also on the side of providers, a lot of times when black clients come through the door, you can almost sense the relief on their face that you're also black, right? Oh my God, so that's a great thing. But on the other side of that coin, when Caucasians come in, sometimes it's just the opposite, as if they want to for you to give them your credentials.
Exactly.
Right, and I found myself in the beginning questioning people, you know, saying, would you go to a mechanic and try to tell a mechanic how to do his job? Would you retain an attorney, right, and tell them that they don't know what they're talking about? And it became easier for me to just, because I refuse to sit in a room with anybody for 50 minutes and just waste their time. Right? If this if there's no therapeutic benefit here, we can terminate the session. But when I'm sitting down with black clients, I have an opportunity to remain professional, but just have real conversations, right? We get to laugh, and anybody who's sat in a room with me, you get a little Jay-Z, you get a little Kevin Hart, you get a little Dr. Phil, you get a little, you know, Dr. King. It just depends. But it's all relatable in a way that makes people feel comfortable without them feeling judged about whatever they're dealing with. And I think that that's important as a black provider to be able to do something to make people of color feel more comfortable. You don't have to be, so tell me how that makes you feel. Tell me more about that. They can see that mess on TV in a movie.
I think one more thing with that is, yes, the bias, it's real. I think part of, if you're seeking services, you're never going to know for sure what that person's bias is. Everybody has them, whether you are sitting with a black provider, a Caucasian provider, whatever. One way for you to know what is happening in that room is to ask questions. So I do a lot of testing where we're looking, does this child have a learning disability? Does this child have ADHD or whatever it is? I have families who have had this testing before come in and they have no idea what the diagnosis was before. They don't know what the testing was used for. They don't know where the information was sent to. They have no idea. And so part of you protecting yourself and being involved in your own care and treatment is asking questions. This is all your information. I do not own any of the information. When somebody comes in and sits in a room with me, it's not about me. This is not my information. So you have the right to know what are you writing on that paper? What diagnosis are you writing down? Who are you telling this to? What are you going to be using this information for? So if they can't answer those questions, that's not somebody that is probably great for you to be talking to. Those are basic questions and basic information that you should be able to get in a 5-minute conversation or in their paperwork. But you have to often ask the questions because a lot of providers assume if you've made it to their office that you know how all this works. And the reality is almost nobody knows how it works. So it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say, I don't quite understand that. Where exactly is this going? What exactly are we going to be doing? Because then you know, here is this person's intention. Here's where this person is going with this. And then you get to decide, do I want to stay in this room and do this?
Yeah, it's very empowering. And I think the issue is we seem to believe that seeking services, whether it be mental health or anything, we're passive participants. You know, it's just, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor and the doctor's gonna tell me. They're just gonna tell me because I don't know anything and they know everything, when that is the farthest from the truth. I tell my clients, you are the person who knows everything. You have all of the information within you. Listen, we're on this road, we are driving, you are in the driver's seat, I'm just a passenger. I changed the radio station and I look out for the state troopers. I am alongside you along this journey. And so equipping, clients, letting them know, hey, you can ask questions. I even tell people a lot of times, hey, if you don't come see me and you want to see somebody else, do me a favor, interview them. Who says when we all went to a job, if we don't work for ourselves, we had an interview, right? To see whether we were fit for the job. So when you go out to see a therapist, a specialist of any kind, interview them. How long have you been doing this? What is your insight or knowledge on the specific issues that I'm being faced with? Interview them. And if they don't cut it, keep it moving, going on to the next. Because the other thing that happens is we get in a session with a provider and that provider does not click. And then we say, oh, bump this, I'm not doing therapy.
All the therapy is bad.
All the therapy is bad. Be an active participant in your treatment. Ask those questions. That provider is not like the judge and jury of your life. Point blank period.
But it's also important to know this, right? And I had a client, and the client came, I'm here so you can tell me what's wrong. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a psychic. I have no clue of what's wrong, right? So I actually had to jump back and forth in chairs in the office to show them how therapy actually works. Hey, you come in, how's your day, what's going on? You tell me what's bothering you, and I begin to give you professional perspective on things you can do to change it. But it's also important to understand that when you seek out help, that you may not know exactly what the terminology, the diagnosis is of it, but you know that something's going on, and you need to be prepared to come in there and express it. But then to, I don't know if it was Dr. Davis or Dr. Williams, to their point, you are given some kind of diagnosis under your insurance. All providers don't tell people that. And that further makes it worse when it comes to trying to rid the stigma about therapy, right? I think that as professionals, we have a
Too very often it seems like being the angry black woman is normalized in our culture, when actually words have very definite meanings. And being the angry black woman, you put that beside the aggressive white woman who is having the same kind of interactions and actions that we have. So the question that I have is, how do we denormalize, and I don't know if that's even a word, how do we denormalize being an angry black woman where the white female is the aggressive white female who not obviously, but by my experience has been given like a path. Yeah, the river is open and they're able to walk through, whereas we have to do, you know what, much more to be what it has to be. And as you're discussing, sometimes we have to be so very diplomatic and let them see that side of us. But also, the other side is just bulldozing through and sometimes stepping on in order to move on. So again, my question is, how do we denormalize angry black woman and really bring to fore what really aggressive white woman is?
Let me touch this. I'm not a woman, so I may not be qualified, but right, I think that, and I think that what happened over time, the black issue, or let me just make it plain, y'all have been used.
Yes.
Y'all have been used to jump on board with so many different movements that you have been forgotten about.
Yes.
See, it's easier to address stuff from a gender than it is from race relation. But what happens is, like Me Too was taken over by others, right? And so many other things. Gabrielle Union just a few days ago with her hair. Now it has become, it's moved from the racial side of the discrimination to gender. And unfortunately, because you all are emotional beings as women, you jump on board with it. Girl power. But your voices are being heard. You're still being marginalized. You're still being deemed as the angry, aggressive, talk with my hand in the sky, ghetto, ratchet, and all of those things. But you're absolutely right. The same thing is true for other groups of minority women. They are able to get away with it because it's accepted for them, but with you all, it's frowned upon.
Well, and there was one other thing I wanted to say too. When I was saying words have meaning, as opposed to being the angry black woman, you brought out a really, really, really important point. And that point is a pained woman. Black, white, orange, pink, or purple. A pained woman. And so that's what I would ask that professionals such as yourselves bring more to the focus and make top of mind is this is a pained person that you're speaking of.
Yes,
and anger is a reflection of pain.
Yes.
And if you're seeing anger, you're seeing a lot of pain.
Yes. Yes.
So
I say that a lot because when we suppress things, we suppress trauma, whatever kind of trauma it is. When it shows up, it doesn't show up like what we suppressed it as. It shows up as anger, abandonment, rejection, insecurities, rage, and everybody's looking at like, why are you acting like that? Okay, well, I didn't deal with this trauma, and so now that's what you're seeing. It's anger, it's rage, but it's exactly what you said. Yeah.
And I apologize for taking up so much time, but this again reflects upon our total community. There's so many negativities in our community, and you know them better than I do. And again, as opposed to saying angry and violence and whatever other kind of words you want, maybe we need to start substituting pain. You're looking at pain, and how can what are you going to do to minimize this pain or to bring about a more normalized situation? And violence is not normal, okay? It might be in our community, but it ain't normal.
Oh, no, not at all. And I think that in our community, we call it nervous breakdowns. Oh, she had a nervous breakdown, he had a nervous breakdown. It's actually a psychotic break. Because all of that stuff has manifested itself, and now you can no longer control your emotions. That's how we end up with so many people. Oh, he had a nervous breakdown, he had to, it's a psychotic break, call it what it is. But you have to be aware of what that is. That's all I mean.
You're ready for interaction. I can tell it and I feel it. And so let me ask one more question, but that opens the door to this exchange because it's time for that. Now, when you talk about stigmas, you're talking about breaking down barriers in our community. Some things that we say, you feel me? Can you get down, can you keep it real with me? And then what we're looking for? Genuineness is just genuineness. I don't care if I got a suit on or blue jean. Can you feel me? Can you relate? Can you connect to my pain? You know what I'm saying? Because if you can't, if you just gonna give me what the book gave you, you ain't got nothing for me. That's true. I'm talking about our community, is that right? But I know it fits everybody else. But in our community, we have to understand. And they're looking to see to us, who are going to be the providers, who are going to be the therapists, who are going to be the counselors. Are you a real person? Not just black, but can you feel me? So here's the question, guys. Here's the question. Do you remember, that's all of us now, a specific experience where you wish that you, your organization, your industry, had done something different? And if you were able to do it over again, what would you change? Can I learn from my mistakes? Am I willing to say, I don't know? You follow what I'm saying? Am I willing to sit down with my colleagues and to be able to say, you know what, I might have blew that one. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to make that again, or will my ego or pride mess that up? Because if I take that into a therapeutic relationship, that client is going to sniff my insecurity. So what mistakes have you made, your industry, or your organization, and could have done something different if you had a chance to do it over again? Is there an example? And then we're going to open the floor for y'all to bring, see if we can feel it.
One of the things that I regret is when it's time to get law enforcement involved with Baker. And I wish that there's something differently that can be done, because what happens is when someone is crying out, they are criminalized and they're put in handcuffs and they are taken and processed, ultimately they make it to a facility. But I don't think that that's a very inviting approach that will help people who are already struggling in silence to speak up. That, that second time you may not have the opportunity. And I was a part of that once, and later found out that something happened to that individual that I couldn't control. But that's just the way that the laws are set, unfortunately.
Great example.
I think for me, until I opened up my practice, I had always worked in hospital settings. And the way things work in hospital settings, the way it works in any system, where there's lots of people involved in everything and lots of people involved in deciding how things go. And one of the things that I always had the hardest time with was, we are supposed to be serving these children, whatever population of children I was working with. And we aren't talking to them to find out what it is that they need. We, as the adults, as the professionals, as the people who know everything, that we don't really know everything, we are deciding what they need and what's going to work best for them. And so there were situations where things weren't working. Things were not actually being helpful. And when the times where we actually sat down with the youth that we're serving and we asked them, well, when you come here, how do people treat you? When you come here, you know, are people using the name you want them to use? Are people pronouncing your name correctly? Are people asking you or giving you the things that you need? And we found out, no, those things weren't happening. And so there were years where that had not been happening. And had we never really pushed the powers that be to sit down and say, well, that's great. I'm very happy to hear what all of you guys have been doing here for years and what you think is working. But I'd like to hear from the people we're not actually helping, what they need us to do. And that's able to kind of change things and move things in a different direction, where then these kids were actually getting help and being engaged and showing up for appointments and doing the things that we're asking them to do, because we had tapped in and directly asked them, what is going to be the thing that works? And I think that's where we often go wrong. We're not asking, what is it that you actually need? We're just deciding, here's what I'm going to provide to you, and you have to take it and get better. And that's not helpful.
For me, mine is twofold, coming from a professional avenue and then from just, you know, dealing with nonprofit work and working with people in teams. From the professional level, I know when I was a young clinician, when you spoke of bringing insecurities and basically projecting your stuff onto clients, I was that therapist that expected the Black mothers to do better, only because I expected myself to do better. And, you know, as growing up, you know, my dad always, hey, listen, we don't settle for less. You bring anything less than a B+ in this house, there's going to be some consequences. When you leave, it's either college or the military, no other choices. Like, you know, it was ingrained in me that you always do the best. And so I took that and I took that out on those clients. Wow. So looking back, I wish I hadn't did that. You know, I wish I had come from a compassionate space and dealt with those women compassionately, because that is what they needed. The other thing is because that is how I grew up, you know, very much strict by the books, things of that nature. You know, the saying goes, you teach people how to treat you. And so in interacting with others in organizations and even in my own nonprofit, I taught people to treat me in a manner of, well, she got it. She got it, and we ain't gonna worry about, you know, getting things done. Tiffany got it, because Tiffany always took over everything. She didn't allow people to do things for her, to make sure that things went along smoothly. So hindsight, again, what I would do is, which I have started doing, so I'm a work in progress, have myself on track, and I learned that in therapy myself, so it works, is, again, showing myself some compassion, telling myself, you're good enough. You know, don't be so hard on yourself. You don't have to get, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you don't have to build everything in a day. And allow, if you show people and you're vulnerable to people and say, hey, I need help. I am toe down. I can't do it all myself. I need you. Then you teach people to love. You teach people compassion. And you teach people what it looks like to be of assistance, to be community, as we should, you know, as we always say. Well, we need to be a community. We don't teach each other how to be a community because we always fighting over territory, who's going to be on the pedestal, who's going to get all the credit, and that was me. So, of course, looking back, you know, now that I'm in that space, I ask for help.
All right.
For me, I would say, when I first started out working, it's sort of like her. I took a lot of things from my personal life. I have my oldest child is disabled. I would look at people and I expect them to do better. Okay, everybody can't raise their disabled child that's in a wheelchair and diapers like you can. So you can't get mad because somebody put theirs in a home. You can, you know. So I had to get out of that mindset and understand that, okay, not because I did it, I don't know what they're dealing with and what they're going through. Their circumstances may be different. Maybe they need a better support network, you know, whatever it is, but for me to, you know, take my issues and portray them on them was not right. And now I know better. I listen, and listening is the key, because a lot of times, like Dr. Bailey said, we just jump up and we want to say what we think it is, but you have to listen to the client. I have a saying, there's no cookie cutter. Everything needs to be client-centered, because what might work for this client may not work for this client. And they may have the same diagnosis, but what may work for this client may not work for this client because they're different. And so I learned to listen and understand and make decisions that will benefit that client in their particular situation.
We have to, I guess us, African American women, we've been, it's generational. We've been taught for so long, even with, you know, with men too, we've been taught for so long to hold our feelings in, or you're not supposed to go outside of the house and talk about this, or, you tell somebody this, then they're gonna, the family gonna be, down upon. So we pretty much have gotten to a place where it's almost like we are afraid to reach out to people, to ask for help. So I think we just basically need to, change. Because I mean, like for myself personally, I don't like being labeled as angry. I don't want to identify with that. So I think changing that narrative is part of, breaking that stigma. Whereas instead of you calling us, angry, I think pain is a so much better, word to use to, to try to, get us to a place where we say, okay, I'm not an angry black woman. I'm just a pained, black woman. I've been through so much. I've seen the crackhead mother, the molested uncle, the cousin, the abusive cousin. We got so much stuff inside of us we've got to, if we want to reach us and get us to come in and seek help, we got to change the narrative. We can't be labeled as, it needs to be the pain campaign or the pain women campaign. It's got to be something different. Because
I'm writing that down.
You started it.
It's funny you said that. It's funny you said that because that's what my nonprofit slogan is, no more family secrets. And the reason is because we were brought up, mama was getting beaten in the house, but you better not tell nobody out the door because you're bringing shame to the family. The molesting uncle, brother, sister, you better not tell nobody, you're going to bring shame to the family. Broken. And now you are a 40-year-old with a 7-year-old inside, because that's when they touch you. So now you bleeding on people that didn't even cut you. Because you're broken, and broke people hurt other people. And so we have to get away from this, the family secret. Man, time out for family secrets, because while the family going on, the one that been messed with, you sitting over there, don't know how to function in life, everybody looking at you crazy because you don't know what you're doing, because you still operate like a 7-year-old, because you stuck there. But the family going on, the same family that told you to keep your mouth shut.
And you projecting it onto your children. And
your spouse, everybody.
Yes,
everybody.
It's a cycle.
I think that, to your point, I often encourage people to name your pain. Name the person that caused your pain. Because when you're able to do that, you're able to begin to be in a position of power.
Yeah.
Right? Name the pain, whatever their name is. But I also think that one of the things that hurt us as a community, we focus on the gender side. As I sat here today, I didn't count, but I continue to hear it from a black woman perspective.
Yeah.
Not as a whole, because believe it or not, there are so many men that hold the same amount of pain, but it's not a safe place to speak of because it's only, and that's a culture thing, right? Well, actually, it's a societal thing because society has made it about women versus men. And what is happening is within our subculture, the men are being minimized and what they've been through, right? So I think that it's responsible for all of us, especially providers, to understand or to begin to put out pain is pain. A lot of these men have dealt with some stuff, you know, sexual assault and things of that nature. Our community is so broken because it's so divided. I often think about Africa and when the Europeans came to take it over. The reason they were able to do so because we were divided. It's no way that 1,000 Europeans were able to come over and take millions of Africans if we had been together. And it continues to this day, even in a dialogue like this one, right? So we have to name the pain, right? What we've been taught, what we are dealing with. But I just want to share it because naming your pain can make a huge difference in your healing process.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you guys are here promoting mental health, how do you guys deal with the day-to-day with people coming in to unload their issues and problems? How do you guys deal with your own issues and
Self-care.
Therapy.
Self-care. Self-care. I'm practicing self-care.
Yeah.
You could get overwhelmed, burnt out if you just, because then you're an empty vessel pouring from an empty vessel. And you can't help nobody if you don't have nothing in here. So I have to get my massages, I have to do all that every week before I go back in there. I prayed up, but yeah, I have to get the whole shebang.
But not only that, setting boundaries. Like we don't really, sometimes as caring professionals, anybody in the healthcare field, we tend to think that we have to save the day, save people, be people's savior and things of that nature. And yes, although I believe that this is my purpose, this is what I'm supposed to do, I'm not everybody's savior, and I do have a limit. So I set boundaries with people. I automatically tell people, listen, I'm not your savior. I don't have all of the answers. No, you can't call me after 9 p.m. Like little things, and it ain't even got to do with clients per se, because clients just a small aspect of my world. Like I have, other personal issues, people that I deal with. I have an organization. I have lots of roles. So just setting boundaries, period, in my entire life is what is helpful, and that's a part of the self-care. Of course, seeking supervision. So anytime that I have a concern about clients, I seek supervision from other clinicians. Having my own personal coach, having my own personal mentor. I tell people there's 3 things you need in life to be successful. You need a coach, you need a mentor, and you need to rally you up some cheerleaders. Because those 3 sets of individuals are going to help you. And as I was sharing earlier, I was the person that, I don't need no help, I got it. But it wasn't until I actually got a coach, got a mentor, got me some cheerleaders, that I was able to rise. So implementing that in my life has also helped me to be able to be full, so that when I go into these sessions with these people, they see a full Tiffany. And like I said again, therapy. Therapy works. I have my own therapist, and I'm not going to go out tell y'all to go and ask therapists if they have a therapist. But a therapist who has a therapist, you're in good hands.
The other part of that too for me is the boundaries is huge. The other part of it is recognizing what's mine. My patients' lives and stories don't belong to me.
Right.
And so when I can walk in the room and I know that, I'm not taking all of that on, and I understand what my place is in that relationship and in that room. And so that allows me at the end of the day to know, for one, I did everything I could do in that room. And it allows me to leave it there until that person comes back in again. And we open that back up because it's not mine. And so me taking it home with me to worry over it and stress over it and not sleep about it, that does absolutely nothing for that person. That does not send magic waves that then help them have an epiphany in the middle of the night that they have, now they're all better. So that took work. That took some time and work for me to understand that me trying to own other people's stories wasn't helpful to them, and it wasn't helpful to me. It wasn't helpful to our work. So that's a huge part of it for me.
For myself, I really go home and I play Madden. I need a way to de-stress. So I do play a video game because I need to, right? I grew up and I was exposed to a lot of trauma. I'm a comeback veteran. I saw a lot of stuff. So I've had a therapist, I've been in therapy, but I don't make anything personal and I don't take anything personal. And I don't counsel friends or family. You can't call me with your stuff, right? Because most people are not equipped to deal with life where life meets them at with their own stuff. But what happens a lot of times, people, you listen to your girlfriends and what she's going through and your family members. Now you're taking all that stuff on board. I compartmentalize really well. I can listen to what you're saying, be present with you at that moment, but the moment that client walks out the door, I take it and I stick it in this imaginary Nike box until they come back in. And at that moment, we can pick right back up, right? And I think that's extremely important to be able to do so, because if we don't compartmentalize and if we're not utilizing self-care, then that's where this thing called burnout comes into play. Because and the boundaries are extremely important. And you can't call me. We can talk about it, whatever we need to in the office, and I had to learn it the hard way, because in the beginning I would give clients my personal, my business cell phone, and their needs don't stop. And so I was like, you know what, teach for a moment. From now on, we'll pick it back up at the door. So.
I got a question. This is kind of, I guess, to all the men on the, panel, and to you, Dr. Jones, since I know you was kind of thinking about ways to connect to. So what do we do? What do you suggest? What's in the cards to try to, to reach our black men, to try to, and I'm speaking from, I'm from Georgia, so I've only been here a little over, a year or so. But Georgia has a system of, personally speaking, my son was 18, and he got a terroristic threat charge, okay? Just because he told a white kid that he was gonna do what we tell each other all the time, because his money fell out of his pocket. The white kid picked it up. He made a threat. When I heard of the charge, I thought he had, threatened the president or somebody, because I've never known of somebody getting a charge. So I have an 18-year-old kid who's never been inside the criminal system at all. But my kid was sent to a prison 2 weeks into, his, what do you call it, when they process you in? He saw somebody who was stabbed in front of him over a bag of chips and a honey bun. So, that's trauma. You got a kid ain't never been inside of this place before, and that's his first introduction of coming into the prison system. I don't even know if he knew how to fight, because like I said, I never had that type of problem out of him. But what do I do to this child who's, he's been traumatized in this system, now he's back out in society, and he got all these issues. And he told me, Mom, prison messed me up. And I know that this is not the same kid that went into the system as the one that I got back out. So what do we do?
Let me address that now, and it's so appropriate that you ask that question. Right now, I'm working with state representatives here in the state of Florida to try to create resources for individuals who have been incarcerated for PTSD related to prison. Because that's one of the things that we overlook. People that go in, they are exposed to so many different things, and then we expect them to come back out ready to jump into society. But the trauma was never addressed. And they don't focus on that inside the institution itself. So with what you just shared, you know, it's just a reminder that the work and the research that I've put into this point is right where it needs to be. Because they're coming home to the community with little hope, opportunity, and there's nothing available for them. When these people come out of prison, there's no mental health. They don't qualify for general counseling. So that what leads to a lot of the behavior that continues to go on. But people say, well, you must like it down there. You need to get yourself together.
Or you did something, you did something to deserve being in that. See, a lot of times you don't know, maybe they didn't do anything to warrant them having to go to a maximum level security prison.
Well, even a week in prison.
Period.
Right? Any of it becomes traumatic. So there are things that's being done, and you know, I look forward to being able to be down in Tallahassee when that bill is signed into law, because the idea is we have a $1.9 billion Department of Correction budget, right? They only, $19,000 is what it costs to house an inmate here in the state of Florida, which is lower than most states. But we have just as many people incarcerated in New York as well as Texas. And my push is to try to get at least $200 million allocated specifically for mental health and general counseling. 100 agencies around the state. But to be completely honest, everybody's not going to buy from it. So what we've had to do is slide first responders into that, because both sides of the aisle will jump on board for first responders. But most people don't care about those who have been convicted, right? And so it may take some time, but in that regard, there is something in place, or a plan at least.
Real quick, Pastor. It takes a village to raise a child in our community. We've always done that when we didn't have those type of programs, and we want to salute Dr. Jones and all the things that are being put in place. But this is where we might have to do some research. We got a lot of men that are coaching our kids using sports as a platform to talk about life issues. We do have our men that's in the recovery community, whether that's Celebrate Recovery, AANA. In our faith, my point being, whether it's therapeutic as well, we got things that are out there, but we might have to do some research and to find out in your zip code where you live at what's available, and sit down and talk with them. But it takes a village. We've always done that, y'all, because the outside wasn't helping us, and we learned how to help ourselves. And I think that we done come full circle, but it's going to take all of us to do it. But it's going to take a little bit of work now. It's going to take a little bit of research. That your son know that he got some men out there who can mentor him, who won't just tell him what to do, but to spend some quality time. And so that's one of the things that we built our community on. That's how we survive, and it's going to take all of it. You follow what I'm saying? But you can't just go anything now. You got to do a little bit, put a little bit of research in it.
Yes, sir. And I got exactly what you were saying. There's some things that happened to us in the trans-American slave trade, things that's affecting us now. I understand that portion of it. And then when we talk about retranslating the psychology part of it, the psychiatry part of it, and then the Bible, all of those things are happening now. But we have to get involved into it to do it. Every time that one of these clinicians meet with an individual, they're bringing their black experience to it. So that's happening. There's a black liberation theology out there that a lot of preachers are preaching now that deals with the reality of who we are and what we've gone through. So those things are happening now. However, we have to get involved in the process. Everyone has to find their role in the process, and it's not something that we have to do exclusive of those that as you say, the founders of the problem, or the ones that created the problem. We can do it with them. We can use their resources to better ourselves, and that's what's happening. But as long as we take a segregated look at it, then it's going to always be those limitations there. Because one, if he who holds the gold makes the rules, then you have to find a way, as Dr. Jones alluded, okay, there's a budget that's in place. He has a program that he wants to get funding for. So in order to get that funding, then he has to slip in something else, because the master is going to say, I'm not going to do this to help them unless there's something attached to it. In the political word, it's called pork. When they add something to a bill to fatten it, to make it pleasable, plausible to others, so they sign on to it. And so we have to understand that we don't have to isolate ourselves in order to deal with these issues. We can deal with them, and every time they're bringing their black experience to it. Every time I stand to preach, I'm preaching from a black experience. I'm preaching from a standpoint of having been in prison, having received a master's degree, having raised boys myself as a single dad, having done these things. I'm preaching from that experience, and I'm sharing that not from some white theology, but from what I've experienced and what I'm translating through the Word of God to benefit those that both hear it and then those that can apply it. Right. However, when these clinicians are getting part of it, they know how to decipher something that's going to be of ill effect. They don't use everything that's presented to them in order to serve the need of those they meet. It's always a case-by-case basis. And so you can't take a overall jab at saying because a portion of it is wrong, then the whole thing is wrong, or we have to revise the entire thing. We just have to use those portions that are good for it. I grew up in Mississippi, and to this day, I don't eat white meat from the chicken. And the reason I don't eat it, because I didn't develop an appetite for it. In my household, Daddy got the big piece of chicken. And that was the breast. I got a leg, if I got to it first, I got a thigh. You understand? And so I developed an appetite for that, and even though now I can go and buy whatever piece of chicken I want, because I developed an appetite for something, that's what I go for. The same is such as in the society when we're dealing with these issues. Whatever we develop an appetite for, that's what we're going to pursue. And so as long as we understand that we can separate the two. We can separate the two. We can separate what was meant to enslave us, as well as and apply what they used to enslave us to liberate us. So it's all about what you develop an appetite for. Some people like to say stuff. That's why some people will never see a counselor, will never see a therapist, because they like being a victim. But then there's others who have showed up and say, hey, I want to do something about it. How do we overcome those things that are keeping us away from getting answers to these problems? And I think we look at a solution-based approach to it. I think we'll always find ourselves at the right point, at the right time, with the right information.
Let me jump in right there, because I almost got up and started shouting. What I will say is that one thing I like to remind people, we cannot be both the victim and the volunteer at the same time. You have to choose. Once you could have been a victim, but at some point, if you allow it to continue to happen, you are volunteering for the victimization. And that's what we got to be mindful of. In regards to psychiatry, I'm pretty sure there are some colleagues who would hate me for this, but it's an unproven science. It's never cured one thing to date. So I get that part. And by the way, Jeezy, what's his name? Kanye got his own body. So he created his own Bible. So I know that's one of the things that you brought up as well. So there are things that's being done. But yeah.
First and foremost, thank you for hosting this conference. I would probably say that you're the first pastor I've heard, not say I go to church every single Sunday, but the first pastor I've ever come across that actually acknowledges the fact that it's okay to worship a deity and have a counselor and a therapist too. So
I got a therapist.
Yeah, so thank you.
Deal with us.
Also, to the panel, thank you. My question is probably a two-part question. First, at least from what I'm hearing, you're catching the individual at the point of, uh-oh. Is there, while there's certainly probably not a one-size-fits-all answer, is there like a foundation to say like there's some type of preventive care or self-care or set a good foundation to say, okay, how do I not get to the point of or minimize it so that if I come to you, which is certainly fine, but it's like a car. It's like, okay, catch it when it's a minor problem as opposed to I need a whole engine rebuild. Second part to that question to the other side, as professionals, and I didn't catch it in your bio, so I'm probably asking a question that's probably outside of your scope, and it's more of a question of the medication end. Do you find that do you find counsel people of color are either over-medicated, and I think of methadone to that end, or under-medicated, and the Tuskegee experiment comes to mind? Do you find that in your profession?
People of color are not going to be under-medicated.
No, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to be over-medicated,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of that, again, and not to beat the people who are reaching out for help, but that's the way it's designed. You got to think about, a psychiatrist comes in, sits down with a patient for a matter of minutes, 15 minutes, right? And listen to what you communicated that you were experiencing and say, well, you know, we're going to try this medication, and if you've already been on that medication, then how's it working for you? Well, we'll change the dosage, we'll try this out, and that's it. This is where you get down to the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
The medication management is designed to only offer temporary relief, right? And we work with the individual, hopefully, prayerfully, to get them to a point of where they'll be released from what they've been struggling with, right? In terms of preventive measures, I guess, my idea is that that's what this is for. To educate the community, the public on, hey, things that you can be doing to notice within self as well as people inside of your circle when signs of trouble are taking place. That we can't do this by ourselves. I can't talk to my homeboy and he's going to be able to put me in the right direction because he may be dealing with some stuff too. So I think that's one of the best approaches for preventive measures, to really just be aware of self when changes are taking place that we can't explain the feelings, as well as with other people around us. But I'm sure.
So one of the things I actually brought with me, it's over on the table over there. For my practice, we keep on our website a list of resources. And so some of these are just sort of general mental health. Some of them are targeted for specific diagnoses or specific issues. And I think that's a good place often for people to start, of just educating yourself on these different things. So you don't need to know what it is. You don't need to know, oh, I think I'm depressed. Being able to tune in and recognize and give yourself grace to know, okay, if I'm feeling different than I normally feel, there might be something going on. Let me see what I can do about that. But I think educating yourself with resources that are kind of backed by science and research, and not just talking to somebody who knew somebody who went to therapy once, which is how a lot of people are getting their information. But looking at that stuff and really kind of educating yourself on, here's some general signs that something might be a problem. Just like we do with physical health kinds of things. There are some formal prevention programs, but you have to really look for them. You have to really search to find them. They're not well publicized, and they're not everywhere.
Like, to touch on your questions, I think it's important whether we're over medicated or mostly not medicated.
Yeah.
to recognize that medication's not the answer.
Correct.
Not the only answer. It only does at max 20% of the work.
Mhm.
We've got to figure out like why we're doing this. And I think with preventative, it's not so much preventing because that's also an attempt to control. We can't control it.
Right.
It's more of gaining insight and awareness and having conversations about it. Like with social media, why things spread so fast? Because we talk about it. Like I'm listening, to Wale. He's talking about anxiety, body dysmorphia, all of these things, normalizing it. So if we are with our friends and our families, instead of just talking about football and superficial stuff, let's talk to our families like, yo, I really had an anxiety attack the other day, or I'm depressed, or let's normalize it. I think for us, that's where we can start to break the stigma, is just having these conversations on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
That's
And then to assigning value to therapy. I really honestly think that a lot of times we don't value therapy. It's like one of those things we talk about, yeah, it's good to get it, but we don't actually value it. Like this is a necessity. This is like the Tylenol in my medicine cabinet. When you have a headache, you go right to it. Well, therapy is like, maybe I'll get to it. And I don't know why Google is picking up on it. I must have said something important. But anyway, the feds be watching. They're on my psychotic. But no, seriously, we don't value it. It's one of those things that's at the bottom of the totem pole, right? Okay. I mean, I have conversations with individuals about that they're good at Dr. Williams or Tiffany or girl. Let me tell you about. Okay, go see a therapist. Oh, I can't afford it. I ain't that serious. But I see you on Facebook. You at a Beyonce concert. You got a new outfit. You got a $300 wig on and everything. It's because we don't value it. So having those conversations around the value of therapy, I believe, will also help with the preventative measure. So that because we'll look at it as, oh, this is needed. I need to go for this. And if I got to work an extra shift, or if I got to cut off eating out every day to make sure that I can, pay for these resources, then I'm going to do it.
And we just had a case in my church where I had a parishioner who, school teacher, had a son who was just acting up in school, acting out, doing everything you can imagine he was doing. 12, 13-year-old kid. Took him to a doctor. The doctor prescribed Vyvanse. And then the mom's paying $300 and some for this medicine, and all you're doing is getting a headache and going to sleep. So I recommended that he go see a therapist, a general counseling therapist. Went to the therapist. In the second week of seeing him, they realized what the problem was. He wants to see his dad. He wants to spend time with his daddy. Got the issues. I had a conversation with the dad and said, listen, this boy needs to see you. This is what happened. He lives less than 4 miles away from him. He started spending time with his daddy, going to his daddy's store every day. Guess what? His behavior changed. Everything changed. And now you're talking about cost or something. That mama was paying $300 something for this medicine. Now she doesn't have to spend it anymore because she went to a therapist, and now we got to the root of the problem. Medicating is not the answer for me. I always tell you, you need to talk it out, get to the root of it. And once you talk it out and get to the root of it, which therapists are good at doing, I think that always leads to a better outcome. And you think about the cost of it, and one of the questions that I was going to pose is how the cost of it and lack of insurance keeps people away. But I've understood, and I've always said this my entire life, people pay for what they want. And so as Dr. Tiffany said, you got to value that. You got to value that time, that therapy. And it's a lot less than you think, but it does cost. And so that's one of the things we have to, one of the stigmas we have to overcome is putting a cost value to it. Jordans, we stayed in line at 3 o'clock in the morning with our children to buy Jordans, $210 for the same shoe they bought last year. But we won't spend $210 with a therapist to get to the root of little Johnny's problem, and then therein lies the problem. Yes, ma'am.
again, I can't be more, I express gratitude for the fact that you're a pastor and you're a part of this, which brings to my thought about this whole thing is, I think that, you know, we as a people in the Black community, we need panelists like you guys in the church. We need pastors to be more welcoming for therapists to sit there and have discussions like this in the church, because the majority of women do go to church with their children, and that could help with preventative methods. That can help with the suppression you talked about, Dr. James. With women, you not only need faith, you need work. Like you said, the nitty gritty. This is the nitty gritty that we need in the church to help solve some of these issues and prevent issues from coming to church, because it's not allowed. Because we have licensed doctors that can see these problems and can connect with the parent and say, hey, this X, Y, Z. And I think that we need more licensed professionals in these churches to help. And then you will have more men coming in church because there is actual help, you know, because we have gotten away from reality. Sometimes we think that that we just pray and, you know, Jesus, this and that, whatever, not realizing that you actually need some tangible things, you know, as well as spiritual, to help overcome some of these issues. And so again, I'm just glad to see you as a pastor being a part of it, and hopefully that you know, take, you know, this and this message or whatever to other pastors, because this is very, very, very important. And there may be some people that may not have mental issues, but dealing with people who are suffering from mental issues that need this type of thing along with spiritual guidance.
Absolutely. One of the things, and I'm going to have time for one more question. As being a pastor, one of the things I've taken note of is that too often the churches preach Jesus, but never preach the gospel that Jesus preached. If you look at any instance where you see Jesus in the Bible, he gets to the root of the problem. He's teaching. And so we teach about Jesus, but we never teach the gospel to preach it, so that causes a problem. And then the other thing with men being in church, the church has done a great job of emasculating men.
Yes.
And so
Say it
when
again.
you tell men that he got to bounce around, jump, shout, do it, that's not how men operate. And so when you make him feel out of place, he don't want to be there. And so that's why the men are not in the church, because the church has just done a banged up job. And so we have to be better at that. And I try to encourage pastors all over to really get to the root of the issue and do a better job. Yes, sir, young man. Jackson State, the
Yes,
Jackson
sir.
State.
The out of my dear old college. But no, I guess something I've kind of been hearing over the course of the day, and thank you all so much for putting this on. Just with, I think you said about like the superwoman, superwoman syndrome, and even I think you, Dr. Jones, with kind of like teaching outside or doing things outside of your field of expertise. I think a lot of times, I just feel like there's this sense of we go into some role or responsibility feeling, I think, an inflated sense of, okay, I have to be everything A to Z. And I think sometimes, at least I can speak personally, I think sometimes just the internal admittance that I can't do this or this is beyond me, I think getting past that boundary, I think is kind of, what stops us sometimes from like going out to get help.
Yes.
Because it's like, okay, well, it's like, all right, it's like I'm a parent, for instance. Like, oh man, like, the child has a problem that you aren't, don't feel fit to do. And all of a sudden it's like, well, darn, my bad. Go to me. And I guess just wanted to get some perspective on that and just kind of your thoughts on like, okay, do you feel like that's the case? And if so, like, how do you help people to kind of like be okay with getting past that point to say like, yes, you can get help and that doesn't, that doesn't mean that you aren't fulfilling your duties and responsibilities regardless of what it is.
I have that conversation with people probably about once a week. Because I work with children, so I'm often talking with their parents. I think it's normalizing it and kind of doing a little bit of a reality check of, you know, you're a parent, you had a baby and they sent you home with this child from the hospital. You didn't get a manual. You don't have a roadmap for everything that this child is going to do, say, experience. So why would you know how to deal with this? You've never had to deal with this particular thing, so why would you? And I think that generally helps people realize, oh, so it makes sense that I have no idea how to deal with this. It makes sense that when this came up, I just was clueless about what to do. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, because why would you know that? And it's the same for anybody coming in. Well, if this is the first time you're dealing with this thing, why would you know how to deal with it? This coming into therapy is part of your learning process. This is where you're learning how to deal with this thing. And then another thing is going to come up and you will learn how to deal with that too. But it's helping people with the reality of, we don't know everything. We're not supposed to know everything. And most people recognize that when you put it that way. Oh yeah, that's true. No, I don't know everything. Okay, and it helps that become easier for them to digest and to give themselves, kind of let themselves up off the hook a little bit for not knowing right off the bat what to do.
I think even, and just kind of piggybacking, I think even just on the notion of like boundaries, like you spoke of earlier, just, I think kind of understanding and I guess respecting your own. Like, I know we talk about creating them, but I think just the unspoken ones, like, I understand, like, okay, like if, for instance, like a pastor, like tries to like, you know, tries to counsel but isn't well trained or like gives just, I guess, unwise advice and something just goes south, you know? You know, and I think even nowadays, just becoming even more cognizant of that, because you're starting to see more and more of like, you know, pastors who are committing suicide and things like that. It's just like, you know, I think just kind of across the board, understanding just like, hey, you have limits and it's okay to like not be everything to everybody in your life.
That is very
Right.
hard.
But you have to give yourself permission, and then,
Give yourself grace.
and to Pastor Brock's statement earlier, I think that it's imperative that they're able to be transparent, right, and open. Because if I have a church of 800 people, and everybody looks to me for the guidance, and I sit down with the deacon board and say, well, listen, I think it'd be a great idea for us to bring therapists in here. Now what I've done is I've taken away the authority to speak to these people.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset, right? Rather than moving stuff out of the way, saying, listen, this is outside of my scope, all I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Bailey, and she can help you better. That requires a person to be selfless. Because now, that couple who could have come to see me in my church, in the pastor, I was about to say chamber, but I know that's the court. Now they may not want to, right? So that is going to require, and that's where, you know, men like Brett and Steve can begin to have those conversations. Listen, we need to do more in the church to get these people in. And it's not that the idea for us to come in and try to recruit clients by any means, just for information, just to put it out there. There's things that can be done. But we have to be able to be kind enough to ourselves to recognize that we don't know everything. That, you know what, it's okay, I don't know this. There's some things I promise you that I have no vested interest in. I would never be able to fix a car, and I'm fine with that. Right? I argue with people all the time about me not having common sense. And I'm fine with that, right? Because a job application doesn't ask you about common sense, right? So it's some things that I'm cool with. And I don't have to, I can give myself permission to be human and say, you know what, I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah, that's it. That human, yes. I use that a lot.
Human. Because when you in this field, not only do people not that you're human,
Yeah.
and then when you have all these roles, like you were saying, you have your nonprofit, you have, I know Dr. Jones has other businesses, and, okay, I'm a pastor, I'm a counselor, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. You have all these roles. I got a nonprofit, and they're sitting up there thinking, you just perfect. You ain't human. You don't need no rest. You don't need no sleep. You don't need to take a bath. You don't need to eat. No, actually, I'm human. You cut me, I'll bleed.
Well, my wife and daughter, like, they'll tell you I'm not perfect, but and I don't even try to own that. But I did see a hand.
Yeah.
So, what question do you have?
It was just in reference to the church. I did some of the networking for this event, and I reached out to local churches in the area. And what's sad is some of the churches felt threatened because now you're taking away the attention from the church, and it's a financial thing because when that plate gets passed around on Sunday, you're taking money from the church.
That's right.
I am so glad you brought that. I was going to say that earlier, but I said, no, this might not be the spot. When we were talking earlier about, you know, the church putting on certain things to draw people and to get mental health services in the church, I'm thinking to myself, that ain't really what they want. They're not really wanting to put on mental health events. And I know of a couple, because I used to be a part of the National Association of Black Social Workers. And we did partner with Northwest Behavioral, and they have a conference every year in conjunction with like EWC and stuff like that to be able to bring light, shed light on mental health. And we also had worked on a manual for laypersons to be able to put into the church so that laypersons, such as nurses or even just even ushers, can be able to recognize that, okay, maybe this particular member is having some issues and be able to get them help. But here's the thing. I would much rather throw a turkey giveaway. I would much rather have a jazz in the gardens. I would much rather have a cantata. I would much rather have anything that's going to have us befuddled and confused and not really focused on what the issue is. And on top of that, something that's going to draw in people and money. Because if for once I actually do something that's going to actually make a change, one, two, liberate other people, I have lost half of my congregation. And that is why we don't really highlight mental health and things that even matter in the Black church, because that's going to mess up with my membership.
Can I show a different perspective a little bit?
Sure, absolutely.
But we're here. We, as a therapist, as a pastor, I'm here. 6 months ago, I went to a same thing at a church where a mental health therapist was invited by this pastor to come to talk about these issues, and they're here. When men come, you can't just present him what he ain't doing, you got to give him a way out. When the church do come, you can't beat it up. No more when the mental health clinician come. We can't tell the mental health clinician, you're not doing a great job. I'm talking about the church. So part of the stigma, part of the barriers is when we do come to the table, rather than lifting one another up. Because if I was a pastor sitting here wasn't open to this, I ain't going back to that. You know what I'm saying? Because what we have done in our community, we have presented the problem and not presented the solution. And that festers the divide. You know what I'm saying? When we really all need one another. There are more pastors that are therapists. There's more therapists that love Jesus. And we need it all. And it hurts me now because I see what we do to one another when we do come to the table. You know what I'm saying? We have to change that narrative. When our sisters come, when our sons come, when our other brothers come from other races. You know what I'm saying? We can't just present the problem. We have to rise above it. I think your question earlier, man. We have to rise above it. I'm not just angry. I'm not just, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking for how do we fix this. It's already broke. And so changing that is going to be very, very, very important to get rid of the stigma, get rid of the barrier, and move from first base over to second base. I'm here. I'm here. I'm a pastor. He's here. It is happening in the church. It is happening in the recovery community. It is happening in the mental health community, right? And we're here because we want to help hurting people. Y'all buy what I'm saying? Just consider that.
So just for clarity, I don't think that the intent was to beat up on the church, the clergy. As much as just bringing awareness to where you are here, where you two are here, you're open and you want to be a part of the conversation. You see, some aren't as open-minded, where they will look at that as a potential threat. Now, one of the things that I would love to see happen, and I said this earlier, I would love to see pastors that are trained, but they would have to surrender under the authority of someone else. Because if, like when you have the knowledge, or the two of you may have the knowledge, if Pastor Jake's over here don't have the knowledge, but because it's Pastor Jake's church, and someone comes in and say, hey, I'm not looking for anything in return from a clinical setting, that ain't the time to say, to allow pride to step in the way. God has spoken to me and told me how I'm supposed to do this, right? So I think that there's a way that we can all meet in the middle on that, to where it's not a tug of war. You know, that's all.
One of the things that I did, I recognized that I now pastor an 80-year-old church. I'm 43. I have several members that's been there longer than I've been alive. And the problems that they had before I got there. And I said, well, one thing, I'm not going to go crazy trying to figure out why they have this problem. And I know my limits. And so I partnered with Orange County Neighborhood Children and Families to actually come into the church. I actually give them, they actually have keys to my church. They're there Mondays and Wednesdays to counsel people because I can't figure it out. And I'm, you know, I'm at the point now where I'm trying to find me a wife. I can't lose all my sense. You know what I'm saying? I can't allow things that I can't control. And I know my limitations. And one, having a pastor's heart, my desire is to see them better. And so whatever it takes to get them better, then that's what I want to do. And I think we brought up some relevant points when it comes to the church and mental health. I brought that issue up because it is an issue. We have to create a partnership with the church and with mental health clinicians to better our people. I think once we find a way to marry the two, I think we'll see a community that's better. I think we'll see more resources pour into the community because now people are more aware that real help is here and that I don't have to negate one in order to take part in the other, but they will both work hand in hand. One of the problems, and I don't want to preach a sermon, and I'm not going to bring it up because we're out of time. But what I want to do is I want to give a round of applause for our initiative. I want to give each one an opportunity to give us a closing remark. At a funeral, you got 2 minutes. You really got 1 minute to give this remark because we got some other housekeeping things that we need to do prior to getting out of here. We want to be proficient in that. So starting with Dr. James, if you would, we'll go down the line that way, and then Dr. Jones can close us out.
My last remark would be that I would like to see more events like this because as a lot of people ask about preventative care, yes, this is informative, but also recognize when something is different. You know your regular routine, and if something is different with you or someone else you love, recognize it and seek the appropriate help. And I just hope that something was said today that could help each and every one of you that are here.
Also tell them how to get in touch with you and how they can utilize your resources.
My website is www.drgailjames.com. My office is located off of 841 Prudential Drive on the 12th floor. And I'm on Facebook, Dr. James Counseling and Consulting Services. I'm on Instagram. I'm on, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
She was asking for my neighbor.
Oh, yeah, we live, no, we work, our offices are next door.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Dr. Tiffany Williams, you can reach me at www.masterpiececounselingservices.com. I have cards later for specifics, so if you want a card, I can give it to you. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Dr. Tiffany L. Williams. You'll find me there. My last words are, it takes vulnerability to be great.
Dr. Lisa Bailey. You can find me at www.nautilusbehavioralhealth.com. I also have cards. They are over on the table to the side. And I'm on Facebook at Nautilus Behavioral Health. My last word is just that we have to redefine the reality that asking for help is not weakness. Asking for help is strength. That's all.
I'm Dr. John Cornelius Jones. I am on, you can find me www.corneliusdjones.com. Also on drjonesoffice.com for my private practice. And first, I really want to just close out by thanking each of you that made it a priority to be here. You guys could have been anyplace else, but you chose to be a part of this. And I'm extremely appreciative of that. And certainly for the panelists who, I contacted, they answered the call, and they showed up. And that says a whole lot. As well as for Britt and Steve. I told them what I was trying to do, and both of them immediately was like, oh, let me know when. So none of this will be possible without the individuals that's here. My closing word would be an old proverb I heard in the military: if you see something, say something. Right? If you notice that somebody is struggling, if you notice something with yourself, rather than sitting in silence, speak up. And with that being said, I know that we got some stuff to raffle. Listen, all that food back there is already paid for.
Twice.
I'm asking for a dime for it.
I'm ready.
Eat it. Okay?
So we have